on WVCW. We back here with another episode of Post to Post with your host, Mario Navarro.
Cooper Bonenberger.
How y'all doing today? How you doing today, Cooper?
Doing all right, doing all right.
That's good to hear.
Brand new special guest.
Yes, sir. You know, excited for this one, hyping this one up. We got Luis, the Blackzilian, Conde Navarro on the show today. I've been hyping this one up for a long time. I'm excited. How you doing today, Luis?
What's up? What's up, guys? Cooper, Mario, Lil Cuz, how you guys doing?
Yes, sir. Yes, sir. No, I got you at an early time where you at right now. It's probably like super early in the morning over here. It's cold and rainy, but I'm happy to have you on the show. We're excited, man. We were hyping this one up for a long time. You know, it's great to have you here.
Fuck yeah, man. I appreciate you. Thank you, guys.
Yes, sir.
Of course, anytime.
Now, you know, I just want the fans, you know, everyone listening to just get a little insight, you know, on you. You know, it's a little background, you know, just, you know, tell us a little, you know, where you grew up, you know, how, you know, what got you started in this MMA and everything, you know, like high school, sports, everything, a little bit background.
So basically, I'm a VA boy. You know, was raised in Virginia. I went to middle school in Chantilly, Loudoun County, Mercer to be exact. Then I went to Stonehill my 8th grade year. Freedom and South Riding is basically where I did all my 4 years, except for maybe a little bit at Westfield. But I played all my sports. Man, since I was little, I probably started off playing, you know, football, just like everyone else did. Got really into that. Played football throughout high school as well as basketball, but really it was really basketball and football, and it was really just me being super young and full of energy and wanting to get up and do stuff. So, you know, my parents put me into a lot of sports, and it was really my dad that really, you know, pushed me into doing that. So now being a father now, looking at it, I'm like, wow, you know, he really took his time out every single day to take me to practice. This is my mom as well, but that's what really got me into being competitive. And I feel like, you know, no one really knows this, but in high school, I could have went places. Everyone's like, "Oh, I could have went to the league. I could have went to college." Man, I could have for sure, but you know, I did one. My grades wasn't right. Two, I was hanging around the wrong people doing, just being young. And then two, and then three, I was just making, you know, impulse decisions. I wasn't really thinking about long-term decisions. I was like, hey, what am I going to do? 18, 17 years old. And what am I going to do now instead of thinking about my future? And like you guys, you boys you already had like a college plan. I had one, but, you know, it really didn't manifest until senior year. And then by the time, you know, I was like, oh, shoot, I can get into college. By that point, my grades are too down the hole for me to kind of recuperate. So I did go to like a JUCO down by James Madison, Blue Ridge for a little while, and then I just realized, hey, like this isn't for me. You know, that's not college isn't the path that I really wanted to take. See a lot of, you know, nothing's wrong with college, but at that point I was thinking, let me get into the workforce. I wasn't even thinking about fighting. You know what I'm saying? Like after like high school, I was like, hey, I'm not gonna play any college sports. Fighting was not even in the realm of reality for me, like at all. Like a couple other than a couple little street fights and you know scuffles that I would get into, it wasn't in the realm of fighting. So had you told me graduating high school, so, oh, bro, you're gonna be a professional fighter, I'd be like, you're lying, bro. That's not something I would do. So that's kind of like my upbringing. You know, high school, local kid. I was just always getting in trouble. I was always hyper. I was always, you know, always trying to be the, you know, the funny guy in the group and stuff like that. But once I realized, I was like, oh, damn, I'm not getting into college, and you know, all my boys are starting to going on to their own lanes. You know, some of my boys moved to Florida and stuff like that. I was like, okay, I got to figure out what I'm going to do if I'm not going to go to college. So I ended up figuring it out, and a couple years later, this is where I'm at now.
For sure, yeah, and it's one of those things where it's like, what was the main thing that told you like college isn't the way? Like, there's something else for me. Like, I can be bigger than this. Like, I can do more. Like, what was that turning point? What was that pivot?
It wasn't like an exact moment. It was just a realization that I was never good at school, you know, and you know, middle school, high school, I'm not just going to turn around and be a good college student. You know, I wasn't going to college. I didn't have a motivation for it. Like, just 100% to be honest with you, I didn't have a motivation. It's like,
Right.
A lot of kids nowadays, they want to do it for certain reasons. Like, oh, I want to get my degree for, for my parents, or I want to do it. There wasn't any motivation for me. My parents were very supportive, but the school thing wasn't one of their top goals. Actually, it was my mom's, but I just
For sure. So you
every
find yourself. Oh,
parent's
sorry. Go ahead.
mom wants them to do that, but I just felt I was so young and naive at that time. I was like, yeah, I don't need college. I need education, this, and the third. So, um, kind of just moved to California and started learning for real.
Yeah.
Sure. So you found yourself. You said you went to JUCO for a little bit. What take us through your process of you're in JUCO, maybe looking for jobs, thinking about what you're gonna do. How does that turn into you discovering fighting,
Sorry, I can't hear you,
mixed
brother.
martial arts? Sorry, my fault. Um, how does you going from you're in JUCO, looking for jobs, and not sure what you want to do? How do you take your life from that point, discovering mixed martial arts, and turning that into the career that you have now?
Okay, so I moved from JUCO. It's a funny story. So I moved from JUCO. I moved to Santa Ana, California. So, if you don't really know too much about Santa Ana, like I look like I'm African American, but I'm obviously Spanish. So before I even moved out there, I was, I was like trying to find the cheapest spot in California,
Yeah.
um, which happened to be Santa Ana, which is probably a very highly Hispanic populated neighborhood. If you know anything about California, they don't really get along with blacks and whites, right? Or blacks and browns don't really get along, too fairly.
Yeah.
So I moved into the neighborhood. Literally the first day, I'm waiting for the leasing office to open up so I can get my keys and stuff like that. And this vato literally comes up to my car. He's like, "Hey Holmes, what are you doing here?" Like, and I was like, I'm just waiting for the leasing, waiting for the leasing department to open up, And he's like, "Hey, Bato, you're in the wrong neighborhood." I was like, "No, this is 1901 First Street." He's like, "Yeah." He's like, "You're gonna have a hard time." And I was like, "No, no, no, I'm Spanish. I'm Spanish." He was like, What are you doing to move out here?" And I was like, "Or why'd you move out here from Virginia?" Because I still had Virginia tags on my car. And I was like, "Well, I'm trying to do this MMA stuff, and really just moved out here to start training." And he was like, "Oh, you're a fighter." And that's the only thing that saved my life. And I lied to him. I was like, and he let me go. Right. So after that, knowing how it is in California, I wasn't really trying to be in the street too much.
Yeah.
Just because you can get caught up a lot, hanging around with the wrong people, especially in California. It's 100% different. The paces of the life is different out here. So I found a jiu-jitsu gym, Total Studios MMA, Brazilian top team in Tustin, with Giuliano and Adriano Nozel. And I went in there and literally got my butt kicked the whole first week. Um, but having that competitive nature in me and really not doing anything else, um, it kind of humbled me in a way. Me coming from Virginia and being high school athlete and all that stuff. I went to a gym and I got humbled by kids that were 15, 16 years old. They were littler than me, skinnier than me. So it really just got the wheels in my brain turning, like basically saying like I'm not the big bad person I thought I was.
Yeah.
So it knocked me down, and I had to rebuild. I had to rebuild my mindset. I had to rebuild my framework of how I thought about things. So now I'm not in California just trying to get in trouble or trying to figure out. I'm trying to figure out what my next step is. And having hope of jujitsu, how I started jujitsu, really brought that upon me because now I wasn't hanging around street people as much. I wasn't hanging around the hustlers or people that could possibly get me in trouble. I started hanging around people that had like-minded goals, like I did, right? So I was an amateur at the time, so my goal then was, one day, maybe in the future, if I get good enough, I'll be pro. That was my mindset. So I started hanging around the people. They were on the amateur team. They were on the lower level like competing area, um, and I started hanging out with them. And me hanging out with them changed my whole perspective and mindset of what I was doing in life. So instead of me, going out every single night, I'll try to focus more on my recovery on a Friday night, so I can get into the gym on Saturday. Or instead of going out all weekend and then feeling like, feeling bad on Monday and being on hungover, and I would just recover on the weekend. So it kind of just changed my mentality, and it made me more, I guess, more laid back and kind of into the jujitsu lifestyle, as opposed to kind of being outside all the time and trying to find something to get into and just being that hustler for real.
Yeah, yeah.
So that's
And
how
was
it really changed.
yeah, and like was that a hard process? A hard adjustment. Getting into that mindset, or did it come easy with just consistency?
It's definitely hard, 100%. It's definitely hard. I mean, anything that you just start pick up doing is going to be hard, especially doing jujitsu. Like I feel like any other sport, there's no sport like jujitsu. But I just feel like that there's so many levels and there's so many degrees of how good you are that you could meet a kid that's 10 years old, 11 years old that's been doing it since he's 4,
Yeah.
and he's gonna give you some hard time. So um, going back to your question, I feel like there's definitely a learning curve,
Hmm.
but you just have to stay consistent. And I was actually thinking about this the other night. It's the people that stay consistent always get good at stuff. You know what I'm
Yeah.
saying? Like
100%.
they're always gonna kind of knock you off the first 2, 3 years. You're gonna be like, oh, you're still doing that. You're still doing that. But I feel like just now I'm reaching that apex where I'm like starting to really really get good at my craft,
Hmm.
where I can start really like people are starting to really notice, especially even in my gym. Like they're like, okay, like you got this mastered. I'm not gonna do this with you. So now I'm really starting to see, and I'm still developing now. And it's been over, it's been close to 4 years. So that's the thing about this sport that's different than any other sport. It's you're not going to be good in one day. Like football, if you're fast, you can run a 4.4. You probably going to make some millions. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah, yeah.
But in MMA and jiu-jitsu, everyone's tough. Everyone can, everyone is strong. Everyone can do good jiu-jitsu. But it's just the difference of who's staying the most consistent, who's putting in the work, who's putting in the hours, and honestly, who's a harder worker. So that's basically what it is. You know, in the combat sports, is who's a harder worker, who's going to be putting in the gyms and the hours in the gym, who's going to be doing the extra stuff, the running, all that good stuff.
For sure. And you mentioned how hard you have to work to be good at MMA, jiu-jitsu, any sort of combat sport specifically. While you were in amateur training, were you doing
Say
any?
again.
While you mentioned how hard you had to work to become good at any combat sport, jiu-jitsu, MMA. Um, so obviously you were working really hard in the gym. While you're maybe an amateur, just becoming pro, did you have any other jobs that you had to, get on the grind, 9 to 5 maybe, to make some money to pay for gym fees and everything like that?
Yeah, yeah, yeah. So I'll kind of give you like the timeline. So I moved out to California 2013. I got into a little bit of fiasco. I moved back out to California some years later, about 2000. I want to say 2018, right? So I was working, and I'm a firm believer of, hey, if I want to do some fighting, I want to do something in the gym, in the fight world, right? There's no point in me trying to be a fighter and then work at TJ Maxx or something like that. It's two completely different things. So
Yeah.
I found the gym. I found the UFC gym that was kind of nearby. I actually found all of them. I just Googled just fight gyms, and I just would hit them up. It's like, hey, do you guys need someone to do sales, trainer? I'll do whatever. Whatever I can do to get on, is to get on. So I found a good job at the UFC gym in Lakewood, California. Worked my way up to assistant manager. And then would train full time, and then I'd still, whenever I'm not training, I would still be in the gym, and I'd still be around MMA and stuff like that. I made my move to California, or made my move to Vegas. Shortly after that, um, and then did the same thing. Found jobs around the gym, so I really only worked gym jobs, um, part time at like farmers market. My boy owned a farmers market, so really part time jobs that would kind of get me enough money to pay the gym dues. Pay my food, my gas, some rent and some basic expenses. But that was kind of starting off, and now realizing that it's it was a struggle for me starting, you know what I'm saying? But now
Yeah.
looking back, and I realized that I needed to do that to develop the skills mentally and physically that I have now, as opposed to had I, worked a full time and then been training full time. One of them has to go. You can't, you can't really do two things full time. And I feel like back then I was so I was so hungry for money that I wouldn't even be fighting if I had a full time job. You know, I just work 8 hours a day, get home, maybe hit the gym a little bit, then be too tired to really do too much, and then I have to go to work in the morning. But no, man, you have to find the right balance, and I feel like I was young. I felt like I'm still 28, so I feel like I'm still young to the point where I have a couple more years before where I could give it all my all, and then I have to start looking at, okay, what are the plans 5, 10 years down the line? What do I want to do to establish some real money? Because I do have two kids, so I'm not trying to work a job that I'm not going to be able to provide for anyone for the next 5 or 10 years. So you really have to. It's MMA is hard, man, because we don't make that much money,
Yeah.
but it's more of the lifestyle for us. It's not the money. I you can ask. I train with a lot of big UFC fighters. It's like, yeah, the money makes it better, but a lot of us, have different backgrounds where it's just being in the gym, being around the same people, being around the camaraderie, um, and being around people that hold you to a different accountability level than normal citizens, right?
Mm-hmm.
Because it's easy, especially in Vegas, it's easy to get into stuff. And VCU as well. You guys are college students. You guys know. You guys, one party can make you do one wrong decision
Yeah.
that can ruin your life. So it's the same thing out here with some of these fighters that I train with, and I've seen it firsthand, and I've gone through it firsthand. So, you know, we really develop a tight knit group, and we hold each other accountable. Why haven't you been to practice? It doesn't matter what kind of level, whether you're on a low level in the UFC. We hold everybody accountable because we know, one slip up, and instead of we can go 10 steps back, and so we all kind of hold each other accountable. But it's hard because, you know, unless you're in the high levels of the UFC, Bellator, and those top promotions, you're not making much money.
Yeah. Yeah. But yeah, no. But speaking of more to you, what's going on in your fighting career right now. You started off, 4-0 on your amateur fights, and then you went and you started doing some pro fights. What was the shift like from the amateur fights to the pro? Like, did you feel the big difference, or was it like, oh, I feel them out, I understand what's going on?
Yeah, so big difference. I think at the amateur level, there's a lot of guys that are, like I was saying, part timers.
Mm-hmm.
And I was a full timer. I was training full time, maybe working a part time job. So when I ran through the amateur scene, it was so quick. It was fast. And the levels of people that wanted more were different, right? At the
Mm-hmm.
amateur level, you know, it's 3 3 minute rounds or 3 2 minute rounds,
Yeah.
which is max a 9 minute fight or a 6 minute fight. So being a part timer, and me being a full timer, I was already training for professional level fights. So 5 rounders for 3 minutes
Mm-hmm.
or 3 5 round fights. So I was training for a 15 round fight regardless.
Yeah.
Whether it ended early or not is the 15-minute fight of all my sparring sessions. Because I was training with pros even as an amateur because I was so big and athletic. And like that's kind of what messed me up going into the pros
Mm.
because I was so athletic. I was thinking, okay, fuck it, excuse me, sorry.
Sorry. Sorry.
I was thinking like, hey, look, I'm already athletic. You know, I can go into the pros a little quicker without developing the skills that I really need to develop in the boxing, in the kickboxing area, and especially in jiu-jitsu and putting it all together in MMA, where I went into my first fight and just off athleticism, I beat the guy,
Mm.
right? But now going into my second fight, I didn't develop the actual skills
Yeah.
that I needed to win a 15 round fight decision, right?
Mm-hmm.
I've always knocked people out. I've always tried to go for the finish. But there's some guys that are, higher level D1 athletes, like wrestlers, that are going to find a takedown and they're going to kind of, sit on you and play the points game. So coming into my second fight, I really, still in my mindset, it's like, I'm going to finish the fight, kill, kill, kill.
Yeah.
I man, I can't even remember his name. But we fought in Iowa. Dude was tough, D1 wrestler. I thought that I won the first round. I knocked him down a couple times.
Yeah.
I made some critical errors that now looking back, I would have never made if I slowed down on my training instead of just going spar, 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 no technique, no technique. Um, if I went back, slowed my game down a little bit more, we could have definitely seen some finishes.
Mm-hmm.
So the level is different because now guys they're not trying to go out there and swing and bang and look for the knockouts. They're trying
There's a little technical difficulties here with the Zoom call.
point fight. They're really not trying to. Some of them, hey, I want to put on a show. I want to show the fans that I want to show the fans who I am and what they're going to be paying their money for here in the future. So, as from a business and an athlete, you really have to separate yourself because the athlete side of me is like, I want to put on a show for my fans. I want to do this, that, and the third. I want to get all the knockouts and do this. But as the business side, when I when I look at a third party, I have to look at it. I got to build my record. I gotta take some of these fights smarter, without because I was taking them on last minute. So now I need a game plan. I need 6 to 8 weeks before a fight so I can game plan on my opponent. I need to get the weight cut down correctly. Really just becoming a pro in being a pro. Because a lot of lower level pros like me, I wasn't really taking my weight cut too much serious, my dieting serious, even my film watching. My last 2 fights, I didn't really watch film. But now I'm starting to see like, hey, I gotta know the tendencies of my opponent. I can't just go in there thinking, I'm super athletic and a fight is a fight. So that's the business part of me that's separating from my athletic side. Because my athletic side, I don't want to give anyone the benefit of the doubt. I'm gonna beat you regardless. I don't need to look at your film. That's just my old mentality, right? So now as I'm going into it, especially coming up this year, me and my team are gonna be super picky with the fights. I'm gonna be going up a weight class, so I'm gonna be fighting at 85 instead of 170 welterweight. And we're just gonna get back on the ball and not try to not look for finishes, but really just stay active, points fight, and then if I can get a knockout, I can get a knockdown. If I can get a sub, I can get a sub. And I think it's just changing how I see the fight going because in my head it's like, hey, I want to finish the first round. Let's finish this up, get out of here, check out, and I head home. And now I have to really just make it thought process, make it an actual 15-minute fight. And if a knockout comes, then it comes. So there's levels of it, especially going from amateur into the lower level pros. But now I'm really starting to see with just being around the higher level pros that it's a process.
Yeah.
You gotta be on a schedule. You gotta know when your sessions are. You gotta know what you're gonna be putting in your body, how much you're gonna be taking out of your body with your calories burned. So it's basically like a science. How much water you're getting put in, how much sleep you're getting put, how many hours of sleep you're getting, what your recovery hours like. At first, I was like, hey, no, I'm just gonna kind of do it. And now this year, for sure, me training all the time, I can see that my body's getting worn down. So I'm taking the recovery more serious now, as opposed to my planning too. So my workouts are planned. I don't try to overtrain as much as I used to, so I don't get burnt out.
Yeah, and I think that's huge. Making sure you're preserving yourself to make sure you're constantly ready to go. But yeah, no. It's another thing here. It's that like you said. I mean, you were talking about your Tyson Miller fight, and you're right. I mean, you put on a show in the first round. You did great. I feel like you sticking to how you're fighting, and like you said, he sat on you some points, and but then I feel like in the next fight against Noda, I feel like it really showed that even with that growth, you came into that game plan with your wrestling a little bit better, and I feel like you did do enough. How you never want to leave it to the judges and how it goes, but my main question is, how did that feel? I feel like even then you still showed growth with your wrestling, and it was a tough decision. Like, how did you move on from that, and like how does that affect your game plan for your next fights?
Yeah, I was gonna ask the same question regarding your mentality.
Sorry, I can't hear you. Put the mic closer to you, brother.
Got you. I was just gonna ask, after that second fight, did your mentality suffer at all? It was your first time.
I can't hear you.
Sorry, my fault. Can you hear me better now?
Yeah, I can hear you.
Gotcha. how did your mentality suffer, and how did you build yourself back up after that tough decision loss, split decision? I personally, watching that fight, thought you won. Again, like we said, it's unfortunate that it was left to the judges. But mentality-wise, how do you come back knowing that you made improvements, but the judges still didn't give it to you?
How do I make improvements? So I'll answer Mario's question first, and I'll kind of run it into yours. Um, Man, I forgot what Mario asked me.
No,
What did he
yeah,
ask
I
me
was
about?
just basically saying, what's it called? Yeah, like you showed improvement from the Tyson Miller fight. You were saying, even with the mentality you had that improvement. You came in there, you wrestled a guy. I feel like you won on points. You did good in just your striking game. It's kind of the same question was, how did you deal with that loss, even with the improvement, and you thinking you had the win there? Like, how does that affect you moving on and moving forward?
Man, my teammates they look at me kind of weird because I don't really take the losses. I don't really think of the losses as losses. I think of them as like
Mm-hmm.
it's a learning lesson for me, right?
Yeah.
In sports, we always look at wins, losses, ties. That's the record, right?
Mm-hmm.
But you never look at the team's development or the players' development. So in my head, I didn't really, yeah, I was bummed that I couldn't get the win, but I learned more than I would have from that loss than I would have learned from me winning that fight. So that's how I look at it. So had I won that fight, I would have went back to the gym, kept doing the same stuff, right?
Yeah.
So me now losing that fight, I realized that I need to implement a system. So when I get someone on the ground, they're not getting up, and I'm finding ways to finish fights now, as opposed to the game plan was let's get them on the ground, let's beat them up a couple times, sub. So now everything is like systematic of how I train.
Yeah.
So it's like A or B. We're gonna stand up. We're gonna try to finish him on the ground or finish him on the feet because I see that he's not there, or we take him down and we try to ragdoll him, and then we try to sub him. But now everything's kind of systematic where um, just me and my team are putting things into place where it's like positional.
Yeah.
If I can get you in this position, we're going this route. If I get you in this position, we're going this route. But as far as the loss, losses hurt, but I kind of treat it normal. Like
Yeah.
it's just life. You're not gonna win at everything in life. And also you're not gonna get super depressed and bent over stuff if something doesn't go your way. Um, I, you know, a loss is a loss, so it's gonna hurt regardless. But with me is, man, I try to get back on the ball, and with me even having the opportunity to show my skills on that type of level was kind of already like, that was a win for me.
Mm-hmm.
So I just see it as, it's an opportunity for me to just improve, because if I could do that at that level with me doing this for a shorter period of time, who knows? I just got to keep pushing it. 3 years down the line from now, we're at Madison Square Garden or Dubai or something like that, and
Yes,
this
sir.
conversation is, manifested itself. So that's how I kind of think about things. It's like, all the great fighters have took losses, and it's really how you bounce back after. And I don't even like to call them losses. It's a learning lesson for me. So we've been going hard in the gym. After that, I was actually just recently supposed to fight, but some things happened. So we've been going. We trained our whole system of how we train out here around. So hopefully this next we can get something earlier on in early January or something like that, and
Yeah.
I'll be able to showcase something for you guys. But we changed the whole system up, so that's why you haven't really seen me active this year. But we've been training, so.
Yeah. And also, with inactivity, it's always like you said, you're taking some time to yourself, with getting your game up, game plan, and also just preserving your body, which is also huge, right? But no, I just want to let everyone know out there, like you said early January, like anything. Yes, you're saying your next fight might be in early January around that time.
So we're thinking early January, February. Honestly, I wanna keep the I want to keep the winter time and the holiday season, for the family and stuff
For
like
sure, for
that.
sure.
But still train so then that way, as soon as we come out of holiday season, we can start the year off right, maybe February, something like that. Yeah.
Yeah, that's exciting. I can't wait for that. But yeah, also moving in logistically, you're saying now that you're fighting at 185. Is that more of a weight you're comfortable at? Like, does that like significantly help your game plan now? Like, you're like, oh, I'm at a more like healthier weight. I feel good. I don't think like takes a weight cut. Like, how's that affecting you as well?
Yeah, honestly, the cut to 170. I'm a big boy anyway, so the cut to 170 was crucial for me. It was more the mental, the dieting as well, but more the mental. Still having to put in the same amount of practices with lower intake of calories and food. So it was just a decision brought to me by by my team and some of my teammates that were, you know, I train with guys that are in the UFC that fight at 185 that I'm bigger than, so they're kind of surprised that they're like, bro, you fight at 170, you're a monster.
Hmm.
And it is a double edged sword, too, right? Because I'm bigger than everyone when it comes to the fight, but I've killed myself to make that weight that I don't
Yeah.
have that cardio in the second and third round like I would have if I just cut a little bit of weight and I feel fully energized. I'm still eating the last week or two of my camp, as opposed to if I cut to 70, that last week and a half I'm not eating I'm not eating any real foods. I'm eating some lettuce wraps and stuff like that,
Yeah.
and killing water, but you're really depleting your body, and that takes its toll into the later rounds. As opposed to for me at 185, that's a 15-pound cut. I feel like I could do that. I could do that today if I really needed to. So it's gonna help me with my energy levels, and honestly, just it takes the stress off cutting weight into the last 2 weeks of the camp where you really need to be worried about fighting, your aspect, your technique, your game plan. Having to cut 20, 30 pounds, last 2 weeks it really stresses you out. It puts a toll on your body, honestly. Because I weigh 205, so cutting almost 35 pounds, 30 pounds within 2 weeks, you know, 3 or 4 times a year, it's
Yeah.
really stressful and it really hurts your body.
Yeah.
So the move to go to 85 is, I knew it was gonna happen, but it happened quicker than I'd imagined. So I got to put some more muscle on my bones, and then you know we'll see how this 85 goes. But I think that's gonna be my my ads. That's gonna be my weight going on now, unless I get older and start fighting at 205 and stuff like that. But it's
Yeah.
only gonna go up from here. It's not gonna go down. I promise you.
100%. And that's always great. That's just always great to hear. Continuing to climb and get better, and that's always good. But
Yes, sir.
So you mentioned you had trained with a good amount of UFC
I
fighters.
can't hear you, brother.
You had mentioned you train with a good amount of UFC fighters. You're currently training at Extreme Couture, right?
Use Mario's because I cannot hear you, brother.
you want to sit right here, real quick? Ask your question.
Switch back and forth, brothers.
Yeah, I might have to do that.
So you were training at Extreme Couture.
Yes, sir.
So you have a lot of UFC fighters there. Do you think that's one of the reasons you mentioned that you're starting to perfect your craft? You think it's training with all the people that are at the elite end of MMA?
Yeah, so Extreme is probably one of the best gyms I want to say in the world. So just being around all those high level guys, um and it's just being around those high level guys and seeing how they work, but it's also I'm obsessed, like I got obsessed with the craft, right? So even before I was at Extreme, I was watching these YouTube videos. I was watching UFC Embedded. I was watching breakdown fights. I was watching techniques. So me being able to kind of have that in my head, then being able to drill it, and then being around all these high level fighters, where I realized that it's all mentality. It's everything is mentality. Everyone can throw a jab. Everyone can throw a straight. Everyone, can do a bag class. But it's all the mentality of working out when your body doesn't feel like it. Pushing through those hard workouts. Really really separating yourself from the regular level athlete to an elite athlete and then a UFC athlete, because everyone in the UFC at a higher levels, the Sean Stricklands, the Dan Iges, those top level guys, you can't get them not to work out. You gotta like, bro, you need to chill. So that's the point where I'm trying to get is really just unlock the savage that's already in me, but to the point where it's sport specific and not like in life. You know what I'm saying? You got to be a savage in the ring and how you perform your workouts and that, but not too much outside of your life. You know what I'm saying? So that's really what I picked up, and it's me getting beat up every day is really starting to toughen the shell.
Definitely. And is there anyone out there that you haven't got the chance to train with that you would like to?
No, not really. I feel like I feel like extreme is one. We're in the fight capital of the world, so anyone that's high level is gonna come here anyway. And if they're in the UFC, PFL, they come to our gym. I strike with probably one of the best striking coaches in the game, which is Dewey Cooper. My teammates, Timmy Kwan, Bubba Jenkins. He's fighting for $1 million on the PFL later on this month. So
Nice.
my training partners are good. So it's really just you know sticking back, being in the gym, putting in the hours, and seeing how they get themselves prepared and seeing their technique and kind of just being like a Kirby, you know what I'm saying? Taking this guy's technique, putting it all into my frame and seeing how best I can use it and the situational stuff that I get put in, how I can use their skills, put in with my skills to finish, whatever I need to finish.
100%, yeah. And when we're excited to keep watching your journey and you'll see, you climb up the ranks. But our Zoom calls can probably cut out in like a couple minutes, so I just want to end it off. For everyone listening, what you got going on? Next, fight wise, business wise, just let them know what you got going on.
So, fight wise, we're looking at the end of January, early February. If you guys don't have me on IG, it's gonna be at the Blackzilian. That's pretty much the only handle that I use right now. I'm really bad with the social media just because
I felt
uh,
that though.
just be training, man. It's training, and everyone on social media nowadays is they're going crazy. So nothing too much planned. I got some new merch that's gonna be dropping for the next fight. We got some stuff planned, but right now, man, I'm in full chill mode for the holidays. I'm just trying to grind. We got Thanksgiving coming up. I'm trying to shoot out there for Christmas. So just
Yeah.
trying to stack out some papers. Still training. Still staying out the way. But definitely in February we got some big things coming. We'll have merch dropping. And also I know you guys are down in VCU and stuff like that, but me and my team we're gonna be doing a jiu-jitsu tour here coming in the next year. I'm from Virginia, so we're gonna be hitting a lot of Virginia gyms.
Yes, sir.
Try to see if we can make our way down there. You know what I'm saying? But yeah, I'm just trying to stay active, and anything that I got, I'll post on my Instagram. I'll let more you guys know. So anyone that wants to follow me and follow my journey, and even if you have any questions, trying to get into professional fighting or even on the amateur scene, shoot me a DM. I can help you if you're going through. We didn't talk about it too much here, but if you're going through, some trials and tribulations in your life in college, you don't want to know what route you want to go to. I'm not going to help you determine that, but I'm going to help you. I'm going to give you some advice on what I did in certain situations that might could help you. It might not could help you. But I just want to help out. Coming back to from where I did, giving back to people that are less experienced that don't have as much knowledge or don't want to make the mistakes that I made to get to where I need to get to. Reach out to me, let me help you, so you don't have to go through what I did to get to where I'm at.
For sure, yeah. But again, happy to have you on here. It was a great time. I appreciate it.
Thank you, Mario. Thank you, guys, man. How about them Eagles though yesterday?
Hey, all right, we're gonna talk about it. We good. We ain't one still. We're fine. We top NFL. We all right.
Yeah, man. But appreciate you guys, man. You guys are killing it. Keep doing it. Keep putting your head down and grinding, man. And anything you guys need from me, man, I'm all ears.
For sure, for sure.
Thank you very much.
Again, man, it was a fun one.
All right, brother.
We good. Man, that was a pleasure, man. It's exciting. To have your first guest on. Take the time out. It was a pleasure having him on here. Take the time out of his day. Give us an insight of what's going on. But man, that was a fun one. We always talking about. We're giving our analytic takes on athletes, right? And it's always good to have someone on here to interview and they'll understand, like, hey, like, humanizing them. You know what I mean? It's like we say all this stuff, but I mean, us behind the mic, we can say whatever we want, but we don't understand the craft that these athletes are putting in, and we have our takes and everything, but it's just from what they're letting us see, you know? So
MMA is one of those sports where the average couch warrior like us does not get to see the behind the scenes, doesn't really get to hear about it.
yeah,
It's a lot easier for maybe a sport like football or basketball where you can kind of guess what their practices look like, what their workouts look like. It's very hard for an MMA fighter, especially with how many different gyms there are, how many different coaches you can go through, training partners. It's hard to imagine what even the average week or training session would look like from the couch, at least. You know, I'm sure once you get into it, it's an average week, but for us in here with absolutely no experience, it's crazy.
yeah,
Can't even like comprehend what they go through.
exactly. Yeah, and it's just, it's one of those things where it's just like, man, you know, it's always good that, you know, to just be like, yo, like, these are people, this is what they're going through. You can say whatever you want, but at the end of the day, you're not going to be doing what they're doing. You'll never understand the game, you know, the way they understand it, you know?
Yeah, definitely not. It's like
Yeah, it's just,
there's so many different thought experiments you can do
Yeah,
with stuff
exactly,
like
right?
that, you know.
but,
And it's really easy to say, like, you watch a UFC, like, for example, the UFC this past weekend, Dan Hooker beat Claudio Puelles. And it looked like Claudio Puelles kind of quit. Took a hard shot to the body, took another one, and he just kind of sat
Yeah.
down. And from our perspective, sitting on the couch, you know, enjoying the UFC card, it looks like, oh, come on, man, like, you quit. It's just one kick to the body. I can
Bigger than that.
100% guarantee you 99% of the population would have folded down in a fetal position almost instantly upon receiving a Dan Hooker kick to the body.
yeah,
It's not as easy as it looks out there, and it doesn't even look easy.
yeah. And we didn't really get into it, but it's one of the things I want to highlight is, you know, mixed martial arts, you know, like, people from, you know, who don't maybe, like, you know, follow sports as much, or, like, maybe don't like the idea of, like, oh, like, fighting, it seems so, like, archaic and, like, you know, gruesome for no reason. But it's like, you really see all these stories in MMA, you know, it changes people's lives, you know, because it's more than just fighting. It's the idea of, you're saying disciplined in the sense, like, you know, like Luis was saying, it's the idea of surrounding yourself with consistency, you know, and staying dedicated, and it kind of just, like, shapes you as a person. And it's just crazy to think you can start this, you know, super, you know, I mean, again, late in life, you know, in quotes, in athletic terms, you know what I mean? You can start later in life. You don't have to be, you know, for your since you know, you were a kid, you can get into it, you know, start training. And, like, even if you don't go professional with it, or MMA, I mean, professional in, you know, UFC, you know, Bellator and all that stuff, it still just helps. And again, like, as much as, you know, with again, talking about UFC 281, Pereira, I mean, listen, that hurt my soul seeing Adesanya go down. But you look at Pereira's story,
Hey,
you know,
Adesanya did not go down, technically.
but
He
you know
did
what I
not
mean.
go down.
You know what I mean. But it was one of those things where, you know, Pereira, you know, I've been hearing his stories that apparently, you know, in Brazil, he suffered from alcoholism, and kickboxing is what strayed him away from it, and you know, kind of like saved him on going the right path, you know. So it's one of those things that I think people gotta understand. Like, it might look, you know, are barbaric or gruesome to some people, but it's an art, and it's a beauty, and it's like, you're seeing these two grown men, you know, fight each other, punch each other, make them bleed. But at the end of the day, it's two men going on a journey, and they happen to cross paths, and it's always respect at the end of the day. You know what I mean?
Yeah, it's nothing. A sanctioned MMA fight is absolutely not comparable to a street fight.
No.
In like 99% of ways. It's very, and obviously there are people, you know, legalize murder. People call it whatever they want. Especially, even like a lot of fighters will say that to make it seem a little bit more intimidating, and like they're really about it. But at the end of the day, it is an art. It's all about form, all about technique. They're practicing it every day. It's not just some
Guys getting in the cage.
some guy that has an anger issue.
Yeah.
No, it's a guy, or I guess you could say woman as well,
Exactly. Yeah.
who has dedicated a mental and physical part of their body to a sport, and that is more than most people can say
100%.
that they've given to their career.
But yeah, no, it's just always great to highlight that and make sure everyone understands that it's sports are sports, but at the same time you dive a little bit deeper. It's bigger than what it seems. It's bigger than a sport. It's bigger than a competition. It's a way of life. It's a lifestyle, and it's just always great to highlight that. For today, thank you again for listening here live for the interview. You had a good one. Remember to follow us on Instagram. Post_2_post23 on Instagram. This will be posted on YouTube. It's going to be the link to our YouTube is in our Instagram, so make sure you follow that, get all the other episodes. But pretty much that's going to do it for us. Maybe we could try and get a late night stream. We've been trying to get going with that for a while, but who knows. But, from WCW, post to post, this is Mario and Cooper, and we out.
Only good.